When I was growing up, our farm was the last house on a little tiny road. We were about as far away from town as you could get, and town wasn't much to speak of. To say that I led a protected childhood as far as meeting people of different cultures and backgrounds would be an understatement. Of course, no one in life is protected from everything. My father died when I was young. I saw my fair share of disappointment and hardship and loneliness. But nothing prepared me for what I saw when I went to prison. As isolated as I had been on our little back road near North Danville, Vermont, suddenly everyone was right on top of each other. They were right on top of you in the chow line. They were right on top of you in the common area watching TV. The cells were right next to each other. And when I first went in, I had a bunkmate. I was top bunk. He was bottom bunk. There was a toilet in there. So we were right in each other's faces all the time. It was something, to say the least, that took some getting used to. But over time, that in your face, always present, somebody always there, somebody always behind you when you're walking the track, somebody being loud while you're listening to TV, somebody waking you up from a nap by shouting in a fight downstairs in the common room. All this became my new normal. And as I watched and as I got to know these guys better and better, this in-your-face reality began to seep into my heart. I cared about these guys. I cared about people I never would have met if I hadn't gone to prison. I cared about my friend Twin when his mother died, and he was just about crushed by the guilt of being in prison and not being able to help his family. I cared about my neighbor Chen, whose parents came all the way, whose Chinese American parents came all the way from New York City to visit him and were denied entrance to the visiting room because they didn't have the right kind of shoes. I cared about so many guys I met who had made life-altering decisions when they were 18, 19, 20 years old. Decisions, life and death decisions, decisions to sell drugs, decisions to be part of gangs, decisions to murder people, to withhold some standard of respect. All these guys, I got to know them. I got to care about them. I got to understand them in ways that I never would have. And not everybody in prison is a minority. Not everybody in prison has the traditional kind of sad story to tell. One of my friends, Jimmy Nicholson, had been some kind of a Wall Street big shot, ran a fund on Wall Street, and got involved in stuff that was illegal and carried out apparently a Ponzi scheme that did cause a lot of people to lose a lot of money. And he just happened to get put in front of a judge with all the white-collar people that get their crimes dismissed or pardoned or get a minimum sentence. He just happened to get a judge right around the time of the 2008 financial crash who was pissed off about all the financial shenanigans that were going on Wall Street, and he decided to make an example out of my friend Jimmy. and he sent him to prison for 40 years. And all the time I was in prison and all the people I met, I never saw a sentence like it for the crime that he had committed. And Jimmy is still in prison today. I walked the track with him many, many times, and I just had an email exchange with him the other day. So this sudden immersion of having all these different people, all these different worlds, all these different stories in your face, in my face, it could have hardened me, I guess, but it didn't. It softened me. It made me more humble. It made me more awake to what the world outside my little back road farmhouse upbringing had taught me. It makes me think about the tragedy of our current political situation. I met so many Hispanic people in prison. In prison, we didn't call anybody Hispanic. We didn't use words like that. You were either white, you were black, or you were Spanish. And if you were Chinese like Chen, you just got lumped in with the white people because there weren't enough Asians to have their own group. But I met so many Hispanic people. In a way, in my experience, Hispanic people were like the heart of prison. They were the guys that were always glad to see each other. They were the guys that had each other's back. They were the guys that would show up when a new Hispanic guy came into the unit. They'd have shower shoes and burritos to offer him on his first night, and a place to come and sit and ask questions and help with anything he needed. They were the guys that came into the unit. They were not always quiet, but they come into the unit and they go, hey, hey. And they were glad to see each other, and they'd cook with each other. And they were, if it's a stereotype, it's a stereotype, but it was true on the compound. The Hispanic guys were the guys that worked. They were the guys that shoveled snow. They were the guys that got up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to the kitchen to cook breakfast. They were the guys that mowed the lawns with the little push rotary mowers, no engine, and they pushed them fast enough to cut the grass. They did everything on the compound. And these are the people in our culture now that we're shaming, vilifying, picking up in unmarked vans from guys with masks on, ICE agents, picking these guys up as though they weren't the big-hearted human beings that I learned them to be. And of course, every generalization is dangerous, but I loved these guys. I played softball with them. I talked with them. I learned Spanish from them a little bit. I walked the track with them. I taught one guy English as best I could because he wanted to get his GED. These guys, they were the heart and soul of the compound. The white guys were more shut down and grim, and the black culture in prison is harder and more on your own and tough guy. And certainly there's some of that in the Hispanic gangs and groups as well, but there was so much heart there. And so it breaks my heart to see what's happening in our culture to these people. How people who've done everything right, people who work their asses off every day, people who work in the restaurants, the nursing homes, in construction, the jobs that so many of Americans simply don't want to do, are being vilified. I've known, thanks to being in prison, I've known hundreds of these guys. I've had them show me pictures of their family, their parents, their wives, their kids. I've listened to them talk about what they're going to do when they get back home, the work they're going to do, how they'll never sell drugs again or whatever it was they did. And a lot of these guys, I can tell they mean it. They meant it. So this leaving the back roads of Vermont was in my face. It was a shock. It was difficult at times. But beyond the shock, beyond the assault of it, these people got into my heart. They opened my heart, and they've never left. And that's why I can genuinely say I'm grateful to life for the ways, for this opportunity, for this experience that opened my eyes and opened my heart to things I never would have seen and never would have come to know on my little back road in Vermont. Thank you so much for coming to listen. If you like these, or if you don't like them, if you'd like to leave a comment, if you'd like to hit the like button and subscribe, I'd appreciate it. It helps me know that people are watching. It helps me know what you care about and what's of interest to you. Thank you so much for coming to visit. I hope to see you again soon.